All right, everyone. Hopefully, I've got this going good. Um, and we got sound and we got the mic and everything's working well. So, all right. Why do I feel the need to talk about sex and gender and sexual preference? There are a couple of reasons. One, I'm simply setting up my streaming studio, and I was trying to think of what to talk about today. Um, but that's really not it. What's really bugging me is there are a lot of genuinely good people out there who are getting dumped on by internet trolls because they don't conform to the way that some people think, I don't know, life should be lived. And the problem is, I find this really dehumanizing. Let me start by saying that, yeah, I am a straight cis male, and I am talking about things that some people say, well, why are you qualified to talk about this? You know, you're not trans. I'm not gay. Uh, I am a white male in my 50s, so that puts me pretty much at the top of privilege. Um, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to talk about it anyway. I used to teach this to my students in college, and I'm going to try to lay down a little knowledge right now and make it as simple as possible. So let's start at the beginning. What is sex? When we talk about sex, what are we talking about? Well, we're not talking about bumping nasties, okay? When we talk about sex, at least from a medical or an anthropological or a science standpoint, we're talking about your chromosomes, so, or your genetics. So, on the physical level, you are born, unless you have a some sort of chromosomal abnormality, you're sort of like trisomy or various other things. You are born with either two X chromosomes or two Y chromosomes. So if you are born, with either two X chromosomes or an X and Y chromosome. Sorry, I'm getting used to the whole live streaming thing. So if you're born with two X chromosomes, you are what we call chromosomally female or sexually female. If you're born with an X and a Y chromosome, you're chromosomally male or sexually male. This has nothing whatsoever to do with gender. Okay. So this has to do with some of the exterior or secondary sexual characteristics. Now, what the chromosomes do, what your genetics do, if you have two X chromosomes, your body is keyed to promote certain hormones that will cause the secondary sexual characteristics to develop, especially when you go through puberty, but even pre-puberty. So basically, these hormones help to decide whether you're going to be born with a vulva or a little pee-pee. Okay, so not trying to be too, well, I'm not monetized, so it really doesn't matter, but I'm hoping that nobody will get offended and call me out on some of these terms. We are trying to be scientific here. So whether you have an innie or an outie, how about that? Of course, when you go through puberty, then you get some of the other sexual characteristics, which would be breasts, body hair, facial hair, all that sort of stuff. Those are all pretty much hormonally determined. As a matter of fact, everybody's pretty much born physically female. Not born female, but when they're in the womb for the first couple of months, there's really no way to distinguish between somebody that's chromosomally male and somebody that's chromosomally female just by looking at an ultrasound or anything like that. Okay. So people conflate being sexually male or sexually female, having XY chromosomes or XX chromosomes, with being gendered male or female. And that's just not the way it works. So gender is a cultural construct, and we are either other gendered or self gendered. what I mean by that is that we're either deciding, so our gender is assigned either by society as a whole or by the individual. For most people, it's both. So if you are sexually male, usually what happens is that society will gender you male, and you'll be gendered male. If you are sexually female, that is, you have two X chromosomes, society usually genders you female. All right. That's not always the case. There are cultures throughout the world and throughout time who have looked at people who are sexually gendered, for example, male, and gendered them female. This happens in certain castes in India. It happens with certain Native American populations. It's happened with European populations. It's happened with African populations, and it's happened with Asian populations. Throughout the world and throughout time, there have been societies that have decided that people should be gendered differently than their sexual identity, not sexual identity, than their chromosomal sexuality. That came out wrong. So there are people who are chromosomally male that were gendered female by society, and there are individuals that are chromosomally female that were gendered male by society. Yeah. That happens less these days, but it still does happen. A great example is from India, where you have the Hijra caste. They're actually untouchables. And they are gendered female by society. They also self-gender as female, and then members of the caste are all gendered as female. All right, but then you get to the more important things that a lot of people are talking about these days, and that has to do with self-gendering. That is, do you gender identify as male, female, non-binary, gender fluid, all the various different versions of being transgendered? And that's a personal thing. That's where you self-gender differently. I have relatives who are transgender. I have friends who are transgendered, and I know people from online who are transgendered, and I've had students that are transgendered. So that's pretty much part of my life. I have a good friend here who is a trans man, and honestly, when I first met him, and for quite some time after that, I had no idea he was trans. And believe me, nobody would want to see him going into a woman's restroom. And by the way, it is him, it is not her that has a beard. Okay. So what does it mean to self-identify as a different gender? Well, that means these individuals have felt uneasy with how society has gendered them, and felt uneasy with their chromosomal identity. And it's really tough, and this can lead to all sorts of harm. Now, when somebody says that they are chromosomally male but gendered female, does that mean that they're a man who is cross-dressing? Not that there's anything wrong with that. No. It means that they are a female that, by some mistake of biology, ended up with some male plumbing. These are not people who are some sort of freak. These are your neighbors. These are your friends. These are people you might not know on the street. They are also not trying to do something bad to little children or anything like this. We always get gender identity mixed up with some sort of thoughts on I don't know, for some reason, pedophilia and stuff like that is just very, very sad that people have to go to that area. That falls under sexual preference. Being transgender does not determine what your sexual preference is. Nor does it matter what it doesn't inform your sexuality. So let's jump into sexuality right there. So that's where you talk about heterosexuality or homosexuality, or bisexuality or polyamory or anything else that's in the middle. So your sexual identity deals with the probably broad category of people that you are attracted to. I'm a heterosexual male. I'm attracted to females. Homosexual males are attracted primarily to men. You can get in with bisexuality, but oftentimes you show a preference for one sex or the other. There's nothing wrong with that. Bisexuality, you're attracted to both sexes, and pansexuality, you're basically attracted to everyone. Does that have anything to do with what your gender is? No. Well, in some small way it does. If you're gendered female and you're attracted to females, then you are a lesbian or homosexual. If you are gendered male and you're attracted to men, then you are gay. If you are gendered female and you're attracted to men, you're straight. Does that have anything to do with whether you're transgendered or not? No, not at all. So, my friend here who's a trans man, chromosomally female, he was in a relationship with a female before he transitioned. On the outside, people would say that he was in a lesbian relationship. He was not in a relationship. He was experiencing gender dysphoria. He always felt that he was a male. He was male, self-gendered, who was in love with a female. He was in a straight relationship. Had another friend, haven't seen him in a long time. Or actually, her. Sorry, I only knew her when she was transitioning. And mostly before. So, she was chromosomally male, attracted to females. So to the outside world, that would make her a straight man. But in reality, she was a lesbian. And as she transitioned, and when she transitioned, she continued to date women. So one of my relatives, a aunt twice removed, something like that. Anyway, I think it is my mother's nephew, I think, is a trans woman, straight, so she's attracted to men. I have another relative that I'm not going to talk about who it is because of the age. And they're going through a lot of problems. And he is a trans man. And the problem is, of course, that his family doesn't understand. And society as a whole, while is becoming better with this, is tough, especially when you're talking with somebody that's underage and with a non-cooperative family. So what do you do there? And I don't really have a good answer to that. So as we said, overall, your sexuality is basically, are you heterosexual or homosexual or pansexual, bisexual? Then you get into sexual preference, and that's completely different. Everybody has a sexual preference. So that it can be anything. Do you like tall people? Do you like fit, thin people? Do you like people that are maybe carrying a little extra weight? Do you like blondes? Do you like whatever? That's sexual preference. Now, There's a sort of a meme going around that says if you don't want to date a trans woman, then you are transphobic or homophobic. And the answer is, well, possibly, but probably not. So, I'm a heterosexual male. I'm attracted to women. Does that mean that if I don't want to date a trans woman, that I am transphobic? Well, no. And honestly, I'm not going to tell you whether I would date a trans woman or not, because I'm married and it's none of your business. But whether I want to date a trans woman or not does not make me transphobic. I have lots of trans friends and relatives. It's fine. I have no problem. If I didn't want to date a trans woman, well, that has to do with sexual preference. It's just sort of the way it is. Most people are attracted to individuals and types. Sometimes that includes plumbing, but not always. Okay, so that has to do with sexual preference. The problem is that we get this all balled up. So, for some reason, trans individuals have been labeled, have been called a lot of really bad things, and it has to do a lot with, I don't know, bathrooms for some odd reason. So, pretty much all the trans individuals I know do their best to pass as the gender they identify with. And many, especially if they've been transitioning for a while, you couldn't tell what chromosomes they were born with. My friend who is a trans male, you definitely would not want to see this big, buff, bearded man going into a woman's restroom. He has had complete bottom surgeries, so he's completely sexually reassigned. So I guess that wouldn't apply. But that was only a couple of years ago, and when I know him, he had not fully transitioned yet. And let me tell you, there would be a lot of commotion if he had gone into a woman's restroom. And so what is the idea is that he's going into like ogle women or molest girls or molest little boys, or I don't understand where that comes from. And it really shouldn't matter. So I guess this sort of little rambling thing, one, I'm testing out my setup. I just want to know, I guess I just want to get this off my chest. I do have full lectures, and I'd be happy to give an actual lecture on some of this stuff if anybody's ever interested in the actual genetics and all that go along it. I've got years of anthropology and archaeology lectures, and I will be putting a bunch of them up here, I guess, but I think that's just what I wanted to get off my chest. So that's about it for now, and I'll see you guys later, and hopefully this worked out.